My husband looked me in the eyes and casually told me that his ex-girlfriend was joining us for Christmas dinner. Just like that. Like it was nothing. Like inviting the woman he used to love into our home, onto our holiday, wasn't a betrayal that would unravel everything we'd built together. But here's the thing. I didn't believe him. Not for a second. Something in his voice, something in the way he wouldn't quite meet my gaze, told me there was so much more to this story. And I was right. What I uncovered over the next 6 weeks changed everything. It changed how I saw my marriage. It changed how I saw him. And it all came to a head on Christmas Eve in a way I never expected. Before we continue the story, please check if you're already subscribed to the channel and leave a comment saying which city you're listening from. This will help me understand the reach of our stories. We really enjoy interacting with you. My name is Jennifer Patterson, and I'm a 33-year-old real estate broker in Austin, Texas. I've spent the last 8 years building a marriage with a man named Brandon Cole. 8 years of trust. 8 years of believing that we were the kind of couple that had something real. I was wrong. But that's not where this story starts. This story starts on November 15th, when my carefully constructed life began to crack. My hands froze over my laptop keyboard the moment Brandon said it. I was sitting at my desk in our Austin home office, the one with the view of Zilker Park, when he casually walked in with 2 cups of coffee, like he was about to deliver the most normal thing in the world. "Hey, babe. So I got an interesting message today." He set the cup down next to my keyboard, completely oblivious to how my stomach had already started twisting. Michelle reached out. She's actually in Texas now. Moved to Dallas for a new wellness coaching position, Michelle. The name hit me like a cold hand down my spine. I forced myself to look up from my screen, kept my expression neutral. After 8 years of marriage, I'd learned to read between the lines of Brandon's voice. And right now, there were lines everywhere. Deep ones. "That's nice," I said carefully. The coffee steamed between us. A perfect little metaphor for the heat I could feel rising in my chest. "How long has it been since you guys talked?" Brandon moved toward the window, his fingers casually tucked into his jeans pockets. That gesture, that was new. Or maybe I just never noticed it before. Not sure, honestly. A few months. She found me on Instagram and sent me a message. Just catching up. A few months. He'd been receiving messages from his ex-girlfriend for months. And I was hearing about it for the first time right now, in this moment, like it was a footnote. Like it didn't matter. "Catching up," I repeated. My voice sounded strange to me, like it was coming from someone else's throat. "And you're telling me this because—" Brandon turned from the window, and I could see it now. The slight nervousness in his jaw, the way he wouldn't quite meet my eyes. "Because I invited her to Christmas dinner, as part of the group, I haven't seen her in 6 years. It's not a big deal. She's just passing through Austin, visiting some friends from college. It made sense. He'd invited her, without asking me, to our home on Christmas Eve, to a dinner where my father, my sister Rachel, and half of our social circle would be watching every interaction." I took a sip of the coffee he'd brought me, hoping the warmth would calm the ice spreading through my veins. It didn't. "You invited your ex-girlfriend to our Christmas dinner without discussing it with me first. Jen, come on." Brandon sighed in that particular way that meant he'd already decided this conversation was inconvenient. "We've been over for years. She's a friend now. I thought you'd be fine with it." He thought I'd be fine with it. That's when something shifted in me. Not dramatically, not like thunder or lightning. It was quieter than that. More like the moment you realize the ground beneath you isn't as solid as you thought it was. I looked at my husband of 8 years. This man I'd built a life with, and I realized I didn't actually know what he'd been doing for the past few months. I didn't know who he was messaging at 11 p.m. I didn't know why he'd suddenly started going to work conferences in San Antonio every other weekend. I didn't know anything anymore. "When is she arriving?" I heard myself ask. "December 23rd. She's staying with some friends in the area, so no drama about accommodations or anything. She just wanted to connect with people she used to know. Reconnect with old friendships. Old friendships. That's what he called it." "Okay," I said. "That's fine. Christmas dinner, sure." Brandon visibly relaxed, thinking he'd won. Thinking I was one of those wives who just accepts whatever her husband decides. Great. I'm glad you're being mature about this, Jen. Seriously. I know Michelle's name probably brings up some feelings, but we're all adults here. I smiled at him then. It wasn't a kind smile. I wasn't even aware I was capable of smiling in that moment, but there it was. Absolutely. We're all adults. He left the office after that satisfied. He kissed the top of my head like he always did, like nothing had changed, like he hadn't just casually dismantled the foundation of trust I'd built with him over 8 years. I waited until I heard him go downstairs, until I heard the refrigerator open and close, until I heard him settle into the living room couch with his laptop. Then I opened a new browser window in private mode and typed her name, Michelle Hayes. The search results were immediate and extensive. LinkedIn profile, life coach based in Dallas, specializing in relationship wellness. Instagram account, 3,247 followers, pictures of her in yoga poses and at business conferences. Facebook page, private, but I could see her profile picture, blonde, beautiful in that effortless way that makes you want to hate her. And then I did something I'd never done in my marriage before. I opened Brandon's digital bill. I had access. We'd added each other to the family plan years ago, back when we were the kind of couple that shared everything. And I logged into his phone account. The logs were there, plain as day. Text messages sent to a number I didn't recognize, starting August 15th. August 15th, that was 4 months ago. 4 months of messages on a number that wasn't, saved in his phone as Michelle Hayes. It was saved as M. My hands started trembling. The Christmas dinner was 39 days away. That's when I realized I needed to know exactly what had been happening between my husband and his ex-girlfriend. And I needed to know it all before December 24th arrived, because something told me that once Michelle walked through our door, everything was going to change. I couldn't sleep that night. Brandon was beside me, breathing steadily, completely unaware that I was lying in the dark, calculating the exact amount of time between August 15th and November 15th. 4 months. Exactly 4 months of messages to a number saved as M by 3 a.m. I had a plan. I got out of bed quietly. The floorboards in our Austin home had their own geography of creaks and silent spots, and I'd navigated them carefully to the living room. Our home office was connected to the hallway, and I closed myself inside with my laptop, a glass of water I wouldn't drink, and the kind of determination that comes from knowing your entire life might be a lie. The phone bill showed the number. I reverse searched it, Dallas area code. The messages didn't appear in our phone logs because they were going through iMessage and WhatsApp, apps that don't always show up on traditional carrier bills, especially if you know how to delete them. I knew Brandon didn't think I knew that. He never thought I paid attention to the technology stuff. I was the real estate broker. He was the financial guy. But real estate meant understanding digital marketing, email systems, client databases. It meant knowing how to follow a trail. I opened WhatsApp on his iPad, the one he'd given me last Christmas that he sometimes left on the kitchen counter. His account was still logged in. It was almost too easy. There they were. Hundreds of messages. Hundreds. August 15. I can't believe I found you. 6 years feels like forever. I think about the old days all the time. Brandon's response, August 16. Michelle. Wow, this is crazy. Yeah, 6 years. That was a good time. How have you been? I felt my chest tighten. I read faster. August 18th. I'm thinking about moving back to Texas. Everything in Colorado wasn't working out. I have this job opportunity in Dallas. August 19th. That would be amazing to have you back in Texas. We should definitely catch up when you get here. August 25th. I can't stop thinking about our conversation yesterday. You always made me feel so understood, Mandon. I know what you mean. You always got me. Even back then, you got me in a way that... The message cut off there. Like maybe he'd realized what he was about to say. But I could fill in the blank. I could fill in all of them. September 2nd. Brandon, can I ask you something? Are you happy? Like really happy? Brandon, honestly? I'm not sure. Work is good. It's just life gets complicated. Relationships get complicated. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely scroll. September 10th. I miss talking to you like this. Remember how easy we were together? We just fit, Brandon. I remember. I think about it more than I should. That was the moment I stopped reading individual messages and just let them blur together. There were too many. Too many messages, too much intimacy, too much of him saying things to Michelle that he hadn't said to me in years. Around September 15th, the tone had shifted from nostalgic to something more dangerous. Michelle, I'm coming to visit Dallas next month for the job interview. I know it's crazy, but would you want to meet up? Like in person? I want to see if... Brandon. If what, Michelle? If what we had is really gone, or if it was just timing. My husband's response came quickly. Brandon, I don't know if that's a good idea, Michelle. Jen and I, we're married. We have a life together. For a moment, just a moment, I felt relief flood through me. Then I kept scrolling. September 22nd. You're right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have suggested that. It was selfish. Brandon, it's not selfish. I've been thinking about it constantly. Would you really want to see me? And that was it. That was the moment I understood. That was the moment I knew my marriage had a tumor growing inside it, and I'd been too busy showing houses and negotiating mortgages to notice. I went to the carrier records and pulled up something I should have been monitoring all along. Roaming charges. Brandon's roaming charges. September 24th through September 26th. San Antonio, Texas. A hotel charge on his credit card for the Marriott downtown. Listed as a solo charge. He was supposed to be in Austin that weekend. We'd had dinner planned with my parents. He'd canceled. He'd said an emergency came up with a client, a merger that needed his immediate attention. October 12th through October 14th. Same hotel, same city. This time I actually remembered. He'd said he had back-to-back meetings with the Austin office dealing with tax implications for one of the company's major accounts. I pulled up his credit card statements going back further. Statements I'd never thought to examine because we were that couple, that trusting couple, that couple that had promised each other honesty is everything. The hotel charges went back to August 28th. August 28th, 13 days after Michelle first messaged him. I think I made a sound, something between a gasp and a sob, but I wasn't entirely sure because there was a roaring in my ears that drowned out everything else. I kept scrolling. I kept finding more restaurant charges. That Italian place downtown that Brandon said he hated but apparently loved when he was with her. The jewelry store at the Barton Creek Mall where he'd charged $200 to a surprise for me. Except when I checked, there was no gift, no surprise, nothing. The messages kept going. By October, it had escalated beyond simple nostalgia. Michelle, October 2nd. I can't keep doing this. Seeing you secretly, pretending it's just catching up, it's torture. Brandon, I know. Believe me, I know. But Jen can't find out. She would destroy me in the divorce. The word divorce. He'd said it. He'd written it. He was thinking about our marriage ending. Michelle, are you saying? Brandon, I'm saying I need time to think, to figure out what I actually want. But yes, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it all the time. I pushed away from the desk and walked to the bathroom. I splashed cold water on my face and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked like someone who was drowning but hadn't quite gone under yet. By the time I returned to the messages, my mind had shifted into a different gear. Not the panic gear, not the hurt gear, a colder, more strategic gear. I opened notes on my phone and started documenting everything. Dates, times, amounts, direct quotes. I wasn't going to lose this. I wasn't going to let this be something that disappeared or got explained away or became a misunderstanding. Around 5 a.m., as the Austin sky was just starting to lighten into that pre-dawn gray, I made a decision. I opened Google Maps and searched for private investigators in the Austin area. I wasn't going to operate in the dark anymore. I wasn't going to stumble around trying to piece together a story that my husband had been writing without me. I was going to hire someone to tell me exactly what was happening, and then, only then, would I decide what to do about Christmas dinner. I closed the laptop quietly and went back to bed. Brandon was still sleeping, his arm reaching across the cold spot where I'd been lying. I looked at him for a long moment, trying to remember the last time I'd actually felt safe with this man. I couldn't quite remember. The private investigator's name was Tom Richardson. He ran a small agency out of a nondescript office building on Congress Avenue in downtown Austin, and when I walked in on November 17th, just 8 days after Brandon had casually destroyed my world, he barely looked up from his desk. "Jennifer Patterson," he asked, though he clearly knew who I was. I'd called ahead, paid his consultation fee, and scheduled a time when Brandon would be at work. "That's me," I said, sitting down in the uncomfortable chair across from his desk. The office smelled like old coffee and disappointment. I wondered how many other women had sat in this exact chair, discovering exactly what I was about to discover. "Your husband, Brandon Cole, financial advisor, works at Morrison and Associates downtown. Married 8 years, no children. You suspect infidelity." Tom didn't look up as he recited the details I'd given him over the phone. He was middle-aged, weathered, like someone who'd seen every possible way a marriage could fail and had stopped being shocked by any of them. "Yes," I said. "Specifically with a woman named Michelle Hayes. She's in Dallas now, works as a life coach. But they've been meeting up in San Antonio at the Marriott downtown." Tom wrote this down without comment. "How long have you suspected this?" "Since November 15th, but based on the evidence I've gathered, it's been going on since August 28th. "You've already done some investigating," he observed. "I've documented what I could find. Phone records, credit card statements, messages between them." I placed a folder on his desk. Inside were printed screenshots, dates, amounts, everything. "I need to know if they're still meeting. I need to know what else they might be doing. And I need actual proof, things that will hold up legally if necessary." Tom opened the folder and flipped through the pages without expression. When he finished, he looked up at me for the first time. "Miss Patterson, this is solid preliminary work. Your instincts are good, but I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "Okay. Are you looking for proof to save your marriage, or are you looking for proof to end it?" The question hung in the air between us, and I realized I didn't actually know the answer. 3 days ago, I would have said, "Save it." 3 days ago, I thought I knew what I wanted. But that was before I'd read messages where my husband said things to another woman that he hadn't said to me in years. That was before I'd found hotel, receipts and restaurant charges and jewelry he'd bought for someone who wasn't me. "I'm looking for the truth," I finally said. "After I have that, I'll figure out what comes next." Tom nodded like this was the answer he'd expected. "I'll start surveillance tomorrow. San Antonio, Dallas, anywhere they might meet. I'll document. Physical contact, interactions, anything that's clearly romantic or intimate in nature. Do you have a photo of the woman?" I pulled up Michelle's Instagram on my phone and showed him. Beautiful, blonde. The kind of beautiful that makes sense for someone who markets themselves as a wellness expert and life coach. The kind of beautiful that makes you wonder why your husband didn't just tell you the truth from the beginning. "I'll send you updates via email," Tom said. "We'll maintain client confidentiality, and I'll make sure nothing is admissible in court if you do go that direction. Do you want me to establish a communication protocol? Something where your husband couldn't possibly find out you've hired me?" "Yes. Absolutely yes." Then here's what we do. I'll set up a secondary email account using an alias.rachel.garcia@outlookmail.com. Check it from your work email, or use your phone on a different network than your home Wi-Fi. Don't mention anything to your husband. As far as he knows, you believed him about Michelle just being an old friend reconnecting. I spent the next hour answering questions, providing additional details, signing paperwork that felt very official and very final. By the time I left Tom's office, it was 2 p.m., and I had official documentation that I was investigating my husband's affair. Over the next week, Tom's reports came in with mechanical regularity. November 19th, subject Brandon Cole left his office at 5:47 p.m., drove directly to San Antonio, checked into Marriott downtown at 6:23 p.m., room 412. Woman identified as Michelle Hayes arrived at 6:51 p.m. I observed them entering room together. Duration of stay, 3 hours, 14 minutes. They exited at 10:05 p.m. and drove to Boudreaux's restaurant. I photographed them from across the room. They held hands during dinner. Very intimate interaction, I read. That email in my office while showing a family a $2 million home in the Zilker area. I smiled and talked about marble countertops and master suite views while my husband was in San Antonio holding hands with his ex-girlfriend. November 22nd. Subject and Michelle Hayes met again, this time in Dallas at the W Hotel. Arrived 3:15 p.m. Room 12-47. Duration, 4 hours, 32 minutes. Upon exiting, observed them kissing in the parking garage. Kiss lasted approximately 47 seconds. 47 seconds. Tom had timed it. I sat in my car and cried for the first time since I'd hired him. November 25th. Subject and Michelle Hayes exchanged multiple text messages throughout the day. Based on visible phone screen, messages included phrases such as, "I can't wait to see you," and "I love you." Observed subject, smiling while texting, laughing at messages. Emotional engagement appears very high. He'd said "I love you" to her. He'd written those words to Michelle Hayes. The same man who now said "I love you" to me only reflexively, only at the end of phone calls or before bed, only as something we'd agreed to do, rather than something he felt. By November 28th, I had enough evidence to destroy him. Tom's final report was the one that truly crystallized everything. November 27th, subject Brandon Cole purchased airline tickets to Dallas for December 21st, 23. 2 tickets, both in his name and Michelle Hayes' name. Flight departing Austin, arriving Dallas, then return flight December 23rd, returning to Austin. However, subject has not informed his wife of this planned trip. I observed subject deleting emails related to this transaction from his trash folder at 8:37 p.m. at his home office. December 21st, 23, that would be 2 days before Christmas dinner. 2 days before Michelle came to our house as a family friend. I stared at the email for so long that my vision started to blur. And that's when I realized something that made my blood go cold. If Brandon had already booked a trip to Dallas with Michelle for December 21st, 23, then he was planning to see her alone before the Christmas dinner. He was planning to spend 2 full days with her, then come home and pretend it had all been some chance encounter at a holiday gathering. He was playing both of us. He was having a full affair, a full secret relationship, and then inviting Michelle to our house like it was no big deal. That's when the anger crystallized into something focused and sharp. I called Rachel that night, my sister, the divorce attorney in Houston who'd always been the practical one, the one who knew exactly how these situations worked and what they meant legally. Jen. "Oh my God," she said when I told her everything. I'd called her from my car, parked in the garage of our Zilker home, unable to go inside and look at Brandon like nothing had changed. This is concrete. He's not just emotionally checked out. He's having an active, ongoing affair. 2 tickets to Dallas? He's planning to leave you. I know. What are you going to do? I looked up at the house through the windshield. The Christmas lights I'd strung up last week seemed to mock me. the wreath on the door. The decorations inside that Brandon had said looked really nice this year. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what he's done, I said quietly. Not in some quiet divorce settlement. Not in some private heartbreak. I'm going to make sure he faces real consequences. Public consequences. Jen, Rachel's voice had shifted into attorney mode. Be careful about revenge. It can complicate the legal proceedings. I'm not interested in revenge, I said. I'm interested in justice. And I think I know exactly how to get it. I spent the next hour explaining to Rachel my idea. The Christmas dinner, the family gathered, the witnesses. And then, at the perfect moment, the revelation. You're going to drop a bomb, Rachel said slowly. I'm going to tell the truth, I corrected her. And yes, I'm going to tell it in front of everyone. Because he wanted to parade his ex-girlfriend through our life like nothing was wrong. He wanted to humiliate me in front of my own family. So I'm going to humiliate him right back. And unlike him, I'll have evidence to back it up. Rachel was quiet for a moment. I'm in, she finally said. I'll come up to Austin for Christmas. I want to be there. Thank you, I whispered. I got out of the car and went into the house. Brandon was watching television in the living room. He looked up when I came in, smiled at me like I was still the woman who believed him about everything. I smiled back and felt absolutely nothing. December arrived with the kind of aggressive cheerfulness that only Christmas could bring. The neighborhood filled with inflatable snowmen and multicolored lights. The stores started playing carols at obscene volumes, and I moved through my life like an actress in a play I'd written myself, waiting for opening night. Brandon had no idea what was coming. He went to work. He came home. He made dinner plans that we canceled because of scheduling conflicts. He kissed me goodbye in the morning and said, "I love you," in the way that had become automatic and empty. And meanwhile, I was building the most important real estate deal of my life, except instead of properties and mortgages, I was dealing in truth and consequences. On December 2nd, I started the guest list. Rachel was obviously coming. She'd already booked her flight from Houston to Austin for December 23rd. She had volunteered to help me with the final setup and to be my support system during what was about to happen. Next, I called my father in Austin. He and my mother had divorced 15 years ago, but we remained close. I told him very carefully, very clinically, that I needed him at Christmas dinner because something important was going to happen. "Is everything okay?" he'd asked, and I could hear the concern in his voice. "No," I'd said. "It's not, but it will be. Please just be there." Then came the rest of the family. My aunt and uncle, Brandon's brother Daniel and his wife, my best friend Ashley, who'd always been skeptical of Brandon anyway, family friends who'd known us as a couple for years and would be shocked by what they were about to witness. I invited 14 people total, not so many that it felt like a spectacle, just enough that it was genuinely a family Christmas dinner. What I didn't tell them was that it was also going to be a confrontation. I ordered catering from a company in downtown Austin, the good place, the one we used for special occasions. Prime rib, truffle potatoes, asparagus, the works. Because even though my marriage was imploding, I still had pride. I was still Jennifer Patterson. I still knew how to host a beautiful dinner. I just did it now with an entirely different purpose. On December 10th, Brandon came home from work and found me sitting at the kitchen table with a list. "Hey, babe, check it out." He was in a good mood, energized, probably because he'd talked to Michelle. I was thinking for Christmas dinner we could do something bigger this year. I already invited some people from work. You don't mind, right? I looked at him. My husband of 8 years. This man I'd trusted with my entire life. Who did you invite? I asked carefully. Just Derek Williams and maybe a couple other people from the office. And obviously Michelle. She's been looking forward to it. Has she? I kept my voice level, light, like he'd just mentioned something casual about the weather. Yeah, totally. She's excited to reconnect with everyone. It'll be fun, Jen. A real celebration. A celebration. He was going to use my Christmas dinner, the holiday I loved, the tradition I'd built, as the setting for his betrayal. I think 14 people is perfect, I said. I don't want it to get too big. Plus, more intimate means everyone will really notice who's there and what's happening. Brandon took my comment at face value. He kissed the top of my head. That's why I married you. You're so good at this stuff. After he left the room, I added 3 more names to my list. Not guests exactly. 3 people I knew I needed to have on standby for a very specific reason. Rachel had suggested I hire a videographer, someone to document what was about to happen. Legal purposes, she'd said. If this goes to court, you want witnesses, and video is the best witness there is. I found someone through a wedding photographer network, a woman named Jessica Price who did event documentation. I explained that I needed filming of my Christmas dinner, and I needed her to be discreet about it. I didn't tell her why. Is this going to be a surprise party? She'd asked hopefully. Something like that, I'd said. On December 15th, I created an email account using a burner phone. I used it to contact Tom Richardson with a final request. I need you to photograph specific moments on December 21-23, Brandon Cole and Michelle Hayes' trip to Dallas. I need photos that clearly show physical intimacy, romantic interaction. Nothing private or illegal, just anything that happens in public spaces. I need this for legal documentation. Tom's response came within an hour. I can do that. We'll send you high-resolution photos by December 23rd. The pieces were falling into place like some kind of dark puzzle. Brandon brought home the airline confirmations. On December 18th, he left them on the counter, I think, accidentally, and I photographed them with my phone. 2 tickets, Austin to Dallas, December 21st, 23. Both names clearly visible. Hey babe, I forgot to tell you, he said, finding me standing there with the confirmations in my hand. I have to go to Dallas for a work thing next week. Just a couple days. A work thing, I repeated. Yeah, some investment seminars. Industry stuff. Derek's going too. Derek. Of course Derek was his alibi. That sounds fun. Who else is going? Just a couple of guys from the office. Nothing major. I looked at my husband's face and realized I didn't recognize him anymore. This man who could lie so easily, who could look me in the eyes and invent an entire narrative, while the truth was completely different. Enjoy your seminars, I said. That week, I coordinated with Rachel every single day via phone calls he couldn't overhear. We strategized, we planned, we made sure everyone who needed to know understood what was about to happen. On December 20th, I called a meeting with my catering company. I walked through the setup with them one more time, made sure they understood the timeline, the seating arrangements. Will Mr. Cole be helping with the setup? The catering manager asked. Mr. Cole will be in Dallas that evening, I said simply. I'll be taking care of all the details. Brandon left for Dallas on December 21st. He kissed me goodbye like it was just another business trip. He said, I love you, and I didn't say it back. I just nodded and watched him drive away. Michelle arrived on December 22nd. Tom sent me a photo. Brandon and Michelle at a Thai restaurant in downtown Dallas, her hand on his arm, both of them laughing. She was wearing a red dress. She looked happy. I saved the photo to my phone. On December 23rd, Brandon returned home at 4 p.m. He was glowing, content, satisfied in a way that made my stomach turn because I knew exactly why he looked that way. How was Dallas? I asked him as he set his bags down in the entryway. Good. Productive. Some good conversations about portfolio strategy and emerging markets. All lies. All of it lies layered on top of each other like some kind of toxic lasagna. Great, I said. Well, rest up. Christmas dinner is tonight, 7 p.m. He didn't even seem to notice that I hadn't actually asked him anything about his trip. He just kissed me, changed his clothes, and came downstairs ready for the evening. I looked at him one more time. This man I'd promised to love forever. Standing in our Austin home in a blue button-down shirt, with wrinkles that needed ironing and a smile that was built on deception. You have no idea what's about to happen, do you? I said quietly. What? He asked. Nothing, just making sure you're ready. By 6:30 p.m., everyone was arriving. Rachel came first, gave me a long hug, whispered, You've got this, in my ear. My father arrived with a bottle of wine he knew I loved. Ashley brought a dessert she'd made. My aunt and uncle came with a gift. Brandon's brother Daniel and his wife arrived looking beautiful and unsuspecting. Michelle showed up at 6:55 p.m. wearing a white dress that felt like a statement. She seemed nervous, like maybe some part of her understood that this wasn't just a casual holiday dinner. She shook my hand at the door and said, "Thanks so much for having me. It's so nice to reconnect with old friends." Old friends. That's what she was calling my marriage. I smiled. You have no idea how nice this is going to be for me. We sat down to dinner at 7:15 p.m. 14 people around my table, the one I'd decorated so carefully, the one I'd set with my good china and fresh flowers. The Christmas lights cast a warm glow over everything, and for a moment, it actually looked perfect. Brandon sat at the head of the table. Michelle was positioned 3 seats away from him, which gave him the plausible deniability of distance, but also let them make eye contact whenever they wanted. We made small talk through the first course. People complimented the food. Rachel and my aunt discussed Christmas shopping. Ashley told a funny story about a client at her fitness studio. It was all very normal, very pleasant, very calm, the calm before the storm. About halfway through the main course, I stood up. The conversation didn't stop immediately. People kept talking, kept eating, but I just stood there at the end of the table, and something about my posture, the straightness of my spine, the absolute stillness of my body, made everyone gradually fall silent. Brandon looked up first. "Jen, everything okay?" "Brandon," I said quietly, "I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer truthfully in front of all these people." I could see his body tense. His hand froze halfway to his mouth with a piece of prime rib still on his fork. "What are you talking about?" "I want to know about your work trip to Dallas. The seminars. Tell everyone about the seminars." He exchanged a glance with Michelle, who'd gone pale. "Jen, this isn't really the time." "It's exactly the time," I said. My voice was steady, colder than I'd ever heard it. "Tell them about the seminars. Tell them about Derek going with you. Tell them about the 2 hotel rooms you booked." The table went absolutely silent. Even the sound of silverware and plates seemed to stop. "I think," Rachel said quietly, "that we should move into the living room. Everyone, now." My father stood up without asking questions. He'd known there was something coming. He just hadn't known it was going to be this. Ashley looked shocked. My aunt and uncle exchanged worried glances. We moved to the living room where Jessica had already set up her camera on a small tripod in the corner. No one had noticed it during dinner. "What is this?" Brandon asked, suddenly angry. "What are you doing, Jen?" "I'm making sure there's a record," I said. I pulled out my phone and opened the email I'd prepared. "I'm going to send everyone here a link. This link contains documentary evidence of your infidelity. I hired a private investigator. I have credit card statements, hotel receipts, messages between you and Michelle spanning 4 months. I have photographs of you 2 together. I have proof that you've been planning to leave me while lying to my face about what you were doing." The color drained from Brandon's face completely. Michelle actually gasped, a small, shocked sound like someone had just pushed all the air out of her lungs. "You had no right," Brandon started. "I had every right," I interrupted. "You broke our marriage. You lied to me. You betrayed me. And you did it with the audacity to think I wouldn't notice. To think I'd just smile and nod and watch you parade your girlfriend through our home like it was nothing." I turned to the room. "I'm sending you all a link to an email that contains everything. Hotel records, credit card statements, text messages. I'm sending this not to hurt you, but because I want everyone to understand exactly what kind of man Brandon is. What kind of person would do this? What kind of person would lie this completely and this convincingly?" "Jen, please don't do this," Brandon said. He was standing now and he looked smaller somehow, like he was collapsing in on himself. "Please, we can talk about this. We can work through this." "You had 4 months to talk to me," I said. "You had 4 months to be honest with me. Instead, you lied. You cheated. You booked trips and hotel rooms and bought jewelry for another woman while sleeping beside me at night, telling me you loved me. I looked at Michelle. She was standing now too, looking like she might be sick. You weren't just reconnecting with an old friend. You were helping him systematically dismantle his marriage. You were participating in his lies, and now everyone who cares about me knows exactly who both of you are. I want to leave, Michelle said suddenly. I'm sorry. I need to go. You should, I said. You should go, and you should never contact my husband again, because he's about to have a lot of lawyers involved in his life, and I'm going to make sure every conversation you've had is documented and used against him in divorce proceedings. Rachel stepped forward. She had her attorney face on, the one that meant business. You also need to know that my sister has hired me to represent her in her divorce. Any communication with Brandon that's not through legal counsel will be considered contempt. Do you understand? Michelle nodded, looking terrified. She grabbed her coat from the entryway and left without another word. I heard her car start in the driveway. Brandon stood in the middle of the living room, surrounded by his family and my family, and he looked completely destroyed. Jen, I'm begging you. I made a mistake. One mistake. 4 months is not one mistake, I said. One mistake is kissing someone at a bar when you're drunk. This was consistent, planned, deliberate deception. You bought plane tickets for her. You booked hotel rooms. You told her you loved her. You don't understand, he started. I understand perfectly, I said. You stopped loving me, but instead of being honest about it, you lied. You created a whole secret life, and then you had the audacity to invite your girlfriend to Christmas dinner like I wouldn't figure it out. My father put his arm around me. We should talk upstairs, he said gently. I looked around the room at the faces of everyone I loved. They looked shocked, sad, disappointed. I looked at Brandon and I felt something shift inside me. Not relief exactly, but something like closure, like I'd finally stopped lying to myself about who he was. You need to leave, I said quietly. Get some clothes together. You're going to stay somewhere else starting tonight. Tomorrow, you're going to receive a call from my attorney. We'll discuss separation, division of assets, and divorce proceedings. This is over, Brandon. Jen, he tried again. I'm not done speaking, I cut him off. While you were in Dallas with Michelle, I had the locks changed. I had a safe deposit box open and moved all the important documents. I had your access to our joint accounts frozen. As of right now, your name is off of everything except the mortgage, and that's getting addressed tomorrow. I'd prepared for this. I'd spent the last 2 weeks working with Rachel to make sure that when I dropped this bomb, the fallout was contained. That I was protected. You can't just... Brandon was stammering now. I can, I said. And I did. Get your clothes. You have an hour. My father and my uncle stood nearby, silent support, making it clear that if Brandon tried anything, they were there to make sure he left quietly. Brandon went upstairs like someone in a dream. He packed a bag. He came back down without looking at anyone. At the door, he tried one more time. I'm sorry, he said to me. I know that doesn't mean anything, but I was an idiot. You were a coward, I corrected him. Idiots don't know better. You knew better. You just didn't care enough about me to do better. He left. I watched him drive away in his car, and I realized that this was the moment my old life ended. This was the moment everything changed. Behind me, my family was silent. Rachel came and stood beside me and squeezed my shoulder. You did the right thing, she said quietly. I know, I said, and I meant it. The next morning, I woke up alone for the first time in 8 years. The bed felt enormous. The silence in the house felt like a presence, like something with weight and substance. I lay there for a moment just breathing, trying to understand what had happened. Then I got up and called Rachel. How are you feeling? She asked. She was staying at a hotel in Austin for the next few days, specifically so she could help me navigate the immediate aftermath. Like I'm in someone else's life, I said honestly. That's normal. What we need to focus on now is making sure legally you're protected. I'm going to draw up a separation agreement. We'll have it served to Brandon through his own attorney, if he's smart enough to hire one, which he should be. Brandon had in fact hired an attorney. His name was Robert Lynch, and he was already trying to position this as misunderstandings and betrayal on both sides. According to his logic, I'd violated Brandon's privacy by hiring a private investigator. I'd publicly humiliated him. I'd been unreasonable and cold. None of it mattered, none of it stuck, because I had evidence, and evidence is the only language that lawyers actually speak. Rachel came over with her laptop and we went through the preliminary numbers. The house, the cars, our retirement accounts, the business equity Brandon had accumulated over the years. It was a lot, financially speaking. It was also, according to Rachel, entirely mine to claim as part of the divorce settlement. He cheated, Rachel said simply. He lied. He committed to infidelity. In Texas, that means adultery, and adultery directly impacts asset division. You're going to be fine, Jen. You're going to be more than fine. But fine wasn't the word I would have used for how I felt. The emails started coming 2 days later. Well-meaning family members, friends who'd been at the dinner, people asking if I was okay, expressing their shock, their anger on my behalf. One of my cousins sent me an article about how common infidelity was, like that was supposed to help. Another friend suggested that maybe Brandon had just been confused, and that all relationships have rough patches. I didn't respond to any of them. I just existed in my house, the house that was now mine alone, and tried to figure out who I was without him. On December 27th, I got a call from Michelle. "How did you get my number?" I asked immediately. Brandon gave it to me. I wanted to apologize. I wanted to explain. "I don't want your explanation," I said. "I want you to understand something. You helped him destroy my marriage. You were part of this. Your apologies don't fix that." "I know. When I met him, I didn't think anything would actually happen. It did. And then it was too late to stop it." "You always had the choice to stop," I said. "You chose not to, and now here we are." I hung up. Brandon started calling by December 28th. The first call came around 11 a.m. when I was listing a new property. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "Jen, please, we need to talk. We need to figure this out. I don't want to lose you." Where had this urgency been when he was booking hotels with Michelle? Rachel advised me not to take his calls directly. "Let me handle everything through his attorney," she'd said. "Any direct communication can be twisted in court. Make sure everything goes through legal channels." I took her advice. By January 2nd, Brandon had moved into an extended stay hotel just off Congress Avenue, the Motel 6 of broken marriages, the place where men who'd destroyed their lives stayed while they waited for lawyers to tell them how much it was all going to cost them. He'd called 3 more times, left more voicemails, each one a variation on the same theme. I'd made a mistake. I was being too harsh. "We should try counseling." I deleted each voicemail without listening to more than the first few seconds. Rachel served him the separation agreement on January 4th. She'd been thorough. She'd been aggressive. She'd been exactly what I needed her to be. Brandon was going to have to sell his shares in his company. He was going to have to split his retirement accounts. He was going to owe me spousal support for 2 years. He was going to have to pay my legal fees. His attorney called back within days, claiming the terms were unreasonable. "Tell him to take them to court," Rachel said flatly. "Let's see what a judge says when I present all of your evidence." He didn't want to go to court. He wanted to settle quietly, to minimize the damage. So by mid-January, we were negotiating. Not because I wanted to negotiate, but because Rachel convinced me that a settlement was faster and cleaner than litigation. "You've already won," she told me. "Taking this to court just means more lawyers, more drama, more of your time spent thinking about him. A settlement gets you out and lets you move forward." She was right. So we settled. Brandon agreed to most of the terms. He kept his car and a portion of his retirement account. I got the house, the furniture, the lion's share of the liquid assets, and 2 years of support that would essentially let me work half-time if I wanted to. By February, it was officially over. Not the marriage, that was technically still happening until the divorce was finalized in 6 months. But the destruction phase was complete. The negotiation was done. Now it was just a matter of waiting for the paperwork to process. By mid-January, the story had spread throughout Austin's professional circles. The real estate market knew. The financial district knew. The general acquaintances and friends knew. Brandon was the guy who'd cheated on his wife and gotten publicly humiliated at Christmas dinner. Michelle had left Dallas. She'd gone back to Colorado, I heard through a mutual friend. She'd deleted her social media. She'd ghosted from the narrative entirely. Brandon was still in Austin, still working at his firm, still living in that extended stay hotel. I saw him once in early February at the grocery store. Our eyes met over the produce section. He looked thin, tired, broken. I felt nothing, or maybe I felt everything, but it was buried so deep that I couldn't access it anymore. The anger had burned away. The hurt had calcified into something harder. What was left was just distance. The recognition that this man had once meant something to me. But that time had passed. I took my cart and went to the other side of the store. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized on June 15th, the same date that Brandon and I had gotten married 8 years earlier. Rachel said it was symbolic. I just thought it was ironic. I didn't cry. I signed the papers, I handed them to Rachel, and I felt lighter. Not happy exactly, lighter. "You're officially a free woman," Rachel said, hugging me. "How does it feel?" "Like I can finally breathe," I said, and I meant it. The Austin summer was starting, hot and aggressive, the kind of heat that makes you want to retreat inside or drive to the coast. I took a week off work. I went to South Padre Island by myself. I sat on the beach and read books and watched the ocean and didn't think about Brandon or Michelle or infidelity or betrayal. I just existed. When I came back to Austin, everything was different. I'd been promoted at the real estate firm. My boss had called me into his office and said, "Jen, we've been hearing incredible things about your work. We'd like to make you a partner. You'd be handling the commercial division." A partnership. 6 months ago, I'd been convinced that my life was ending. Now I was being offered a partnership. I said yes immediately. By July, I had my own office, my own team, my own commission structure that meant I was suddenly making more money than I'd ever made before. I was working, building something, creating something entirely my own. I started dating again in late July. Nothing serious, just a guy I met at a coffee shop who was nice and normal and had no connection to my tragic backstory. We went to dinner. We saw a movie. It wasn't love, but it wasn't supposed to be. It was just a reminder that not all men were liars, that there was life after betrayal. By August, I was approached by a woman at my gym named Anna. She was younger than me, maybe mid-20s, and she looked like she'd been crying. "Are you Jennifer Patterson?" she asked, approaching me after a class. I turned to her slightly confused. "Yes, I heard your story," she said quietly, "from someone in my book club, about what your husband did, about how you found out and what you did at Christmas dinner." I didn't know what to say to that. My personal tragedy had apparently become part of Austin's gossip network. "I'm telling you because I was in a relationship with a man who was doing the same thing," Anna continued, "and I didn't know it. I didn't have the strength to do what you did. But hearing what you did, it made me strong enough to ask questions, to get answers, to leave him." I looked at this young woman, and I saw myself from 8 years ago. I saw the version of me that had trusted completely, that had believed in marriage and forever. "Good," I said. "I'm glad you left him." "I started a support group," Anna said, "for women dealing with infidelity, betrayal. We meet every other Thursday. Would you be interested in speaking to us?" And that's how I ended up standing in front of a circle of 12 women in a church basement in South Austin, telling them my story. Not because I wanted to relive it, but because I understood something that Anna had understood. Sometimes when you survive something devastating, the only way to make sense of it is to help someone else survive it too. The thing no one tells you, I said to them, is that after the confrontation, after the revenge, after the vindication, you still have to figure out who you are without that person. I spent 8 years being married to Brandon, and when that ended, I had to figure out who Jennifer was. Just Jennifer. By herself, one of the women raised her hand. Does it get easier? It gets different, I said. It doesn't hurt the same way, but you don't forget. You just learn to carry it differently. You learn that you're stronger than you thought you were, and you learn that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's just moving forward and becoming a version of yourself that doesn't need him anymore. By the end of the year, I'd become a regular speaker at Anna's group. I'd also been featured in an article in Austin's monthly lifestyle magazine about overcoming betrayal. I'd been interviewed by a podcast. I'd become somehow the face of a woman who'd taken her power back. It was weird. It was also kind of empowering. In November, I got a message through Instagram from a woman in California who said she'd watched a video of my story that someone had posted online. The video had gone viral. Apparently people loved stories about women discovering infidelity and taking action. The woman wanted to know if I'd be interested in writing a book about my experience. "We think your story could really resonate," she wrote. "Women dealing with betrayal, learning to trust themselves again, building independent lives. There's a real market for that." I said yes before I'd even thought about it. By the following spring, I had a book deal. By summer, I was working with a ghostwriter. By fall, my book, Reclaiming Me, How I Discovered My Husband's Betrayal and Found Myself, was being published by a mid-level publishing house with a modest advance and genuine enthusiasm from the marketing team. It hit number 3 on the relationship and self-help list on Amazon. It got reviewed positively by women's magazines. It got featured on podcasts. It became somehow a thing. And every single time I talked about it, every single time I told my story, I thought about Brandon. Not with anger anymore, but with something like gratitude. Because if he hadn't cheated, if he hadn't lied, if he hadn't thought he was clever enough to deceive me, I never would have discovered that I was strong enough to do what I did. I never would have become this version of myself. 1 year after the Christmas dinner confrontation, on December 24th, I was sitting in my office at the real estate firm, the office with my name on the door, finalizing a $2.3 million commercial property sale. The commission was significant. The deal was enormous. I was about to close out the year as the top producer in my company. My phone buzzed. It was a notification that Brandon had posted something on Instagram. I almost didn't look at it, but then I did. He was engaged to someone named Loring, and the caption read, "Can't wait to spend forever with this amazing woman." I looked at the photo. He looked happy, peaceful, like his life had somehow recovered. And here's the thing that surprised me. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel betrayed or upset. I just felt nothing. He was moving on. Good for him. I'd moved on so completely that his life was basically irrelevant to mine at this point. I closed the Instagram app and refocused on my work. By June of the following year, 1 full year after my divorce was finalized, I was sitting on the deck of my house in Austin, overlooking Zilker Park. The view that had once belonged to Brandon and me now belonged entirely to me. I'd redecorated it. I'd made it my own. It was no longer the house where I'd discovered my husband's infidelity. It was Jennifer's house, the house of a woman who'd survived something devastating and come out the other side stronger. Rachel was sitting beside me with a margarita. "Look at you," she said. Partner at the firm. Published author. Speaking at universities about relationship resilience. Who knew Christmas 2024 was going to be the best thing that ever happened to you? I knew, I said. And I meant it. That moment when I decided to stop being a victim and start being strategic. That changed everything. "You were incredible that night," Rachel said. "Honestly, Jen, I've seen a lot of courtroom drama, and what you did took more courage than most people have." I took a sip of my margarita. The Austin sunset was turning the sky orange and gold. Christmas lights were already starting to appear in the neighborhood. It was June, but Zilker was always early with the decorations. You want to know what the craziest thing is? I said, I don't regret any of it. Not the discovery, not the humiliation he felt, not the public confrontation. Some people think I'm harsh or vindictive, but I'm not. I just refused to let him get to define the narrative. I didn't get hurt quietly. I got angry, and I did something about it. That's the moral of your story, though, isn't it? Rachel said. That's what resonates with people. You didn't just survive. You didn't just move on quietly. You took control. Exactly. And I'm still taking control. Every single day. A year and a half later, my book had sold over 100,000 copies. I'd gotten offers to adapt it into a documentary series. Speaking engagements were coming in from universities and corporate retreats. I'd essentially built an entirely new career on top of my real estate success. I wasn't rich in the way Brandon had been, with his financial advisor's salary and his investments. But I was rich in something better. Freedom, self-determination, a life that was entirely my own. Sometimes I thought about Michelle. I wondered if she'd gotten married to someone, if she'd found happiness, if she ever thought about that Christmas dinner and the way her entire life changed in a single evening. But mostly, I didn't think about her at all. She'd become a character in my story, not the center of it, and that, I realized, was the real victory. Not the confrontation, not the vindication, not even the book deal or the professional success. The real victory was the moment I stopped defining myself by what Brandon and Michelle had done, and I started defining myself by what I was building. I was Jennifer Patterson. I was a real estate partner. I was a published author. I was someone's sister, someone's friend, someone's inspiration. I was strong. I was capable. I was free. And I would never, ever give another man the power to define my story again. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. Thank you so much for your sweet support.